Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is REGANELITE here. How are you all doing? Hope you're all doing well. Welcome to Prime Minister's Questions on the 13th of November 2024, where we will be covering Prime Minister's Questions between the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer of the Labour Party, and we'll be hearing from opposition such as Kemi, Baganot, of the leader of the Conservative Party, the main opposition, as well as Ed Davey, the Liberal Democrat leader as well. You will have 2 questions to answer, and then we'll hear from other MPs as well. We are dual streaming live on youtube.com/ReganElite and on twitch.tv/ReganElite1. We are just waiting for the speaker to stand up and do his usual thing. Just a reminder, guys, there is no Snowflake Watch tonight. Tonight will be a mental health live stream. So if you want to talk about that kind of stuff, if you want to listen in and give your thoughts, you're more than welcome to do so. There are a lot of tunes that I need to change. I used to actually have like this Russian themed music for Prime Minister's Questions because of the Russian influence that is in British politics, but I changed it. So yeah, I think there are quite a few tracks that I do need to change over. That is for sure. We're just waiting. They're still just finishing up questions on other things there. Mad Monk, good to see you there. I hope you're doing well. Aki's Mad as well, and Julie Brown, DJ Marley as well. Good to see you all. How are you doing? Regan, you better call out the Welsh archers. You're getting outnumbered by the Scots. Finally, the Prime Minister's turned up. Better late than never. Oh my God, what on earth is that? All right, I'm not gonna say I'm not gonna say my thoughts on that. Okay. So someone's wearing something a bit like, huh? What is that? A bit different, I would say there. I suppose I could show you the screen there. I'll put the volume on once the speaker stands up. It doesn't look like Lizzie Hoyle is running things from the looks of it. Maybe I'm just not looking. I've just got it on mute currently here, guys, while they're just while things are going on. Let's just see if there's anything else I haven't said in the chat. I have had lunch, by the way, as well. I've recorded most content today, but there's other bits. There's always things I need to do. Just a reminder as well, on Thursday, tomorrow, myself, Daily Blase, All Shorts, and Ranangan Pagan will be covering the first Snowflake round table. So do join us for that. I do have a date for next month, but I just need to get confirmation from a few people for next month's one. Hello, Alistair Keir. Good to see you there. Hope you're doing well.
Taking with government colleagues to ensure hospitals support breastfeeding mothers appropriately.
Just going to turn that right down for the time being, because we're still waiting for it to get going. That's why sometimes I normally wait till 12 o'clock on the dot sometimes, but we'll start a bit earlier for you guys.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Australia, Canada, Germany and the Netherlands have called...
Still waiting, guys, sorry.
What the countries say are violations of the UN Convention of the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. This is the precursor before action up to the ICJ. Will the UK be joining them?
Mr. Speaker, please forgive me, I didn't quite hear all of the Honourable Lady's question, but I will make sure that the issue she identifies is picked up with the relevant Minister and that she receives a full response.
That completes questions. Before we come to Prime Minister's questions...
Right.
Alberta. Before I come to Prime Minister's questions, I wish to welcome our special guest who is observing our proceedings today. His Excellency, the Speaker of the Somali House of the People. Your Excellency, you're more welcome. Let us move to Prime Minister's questions. Christine Jolly.
Question number 1, please, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, on Monday I was honoured to join President Macron to mark Armistice Day in Paris, and together we paid tribute to the fallen of the First World War and all subsequent conflicts, who made the ultimate sacrifice for the freedom that we enjoy today. Mr. Speaker, I also attended the COP summit. My focus, as ever, was on British energy security and the jobs of the future that should be with these shores, central issues of concern to people in this country. It is also Islamophobia Awareness Month, and I reaffirm our commitment to standing against discrimination and racism in all its forms. Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others, in addition to my duties in this House. I shall have further such meetings later today.
Christine Jolly.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. In the 2 weeks since the budget, I've been contacted by several GP practices in my constituency of Edinburgh West, including my own, I should say, with their genuine fears that the impacts of the changes to National Insurance Employers' contribution will threaten their ability to continue to offer the public the health service at the standard they do at the moment. And they are far from the only ones struggling, particularly in the health and social care sectors. So can the Prime Minister tell me, or perhaps he and his Chancellor would like to come to my constituency and explain to those GPs, to charities and others, how they are meant to cope without extra support from the government?
Look, Mr. Speaker, what I would say is this: because of the tough decisions that we took, we have put forward a budget.
There's a £22 billion black hole we need to fill, yada, yada, yada. We've made the tough decisions. Oh, my God. Just don't answer the question, then fine.
With an extra, Mr. Speaker, an extra £25.6 billion for the NHS and for social care. That includes an increase to carers allowance, and £600 million available to deal with the pressures of adult social care. We will ensure that GP practices have the resources that we need, and the funding arrangements between the NHS and contractors will be set out in the usual way.
Lord Hutton.
Mr. Speaker, members have raised their concerns with a range of damaging policies pursued by the Leader of the Opposition. This includes voting against critical investment for our NHS, stating that maternity pay is excessive and the minimum wage a burden, and even backing harmful fracking when last in government. So is the Prime Minister aware of any attempt by the Leader of the Opposition to justify these dangerous positions which would cause untold damage to communities like mine in South Dorset?
This is what you would call sucking up to the Prime Minister to get favourability, and that's exactly what he's doing here, while also at the same time bashing Kemi. And by the way, I don't have a problem with people bashing Kemi Badenoch because of things that she has said and wants to do. So I'm all for people hammering down her.
This government has given millions of people a pay rise of £1,400 by boosting the minimum wage. We've strengthened parental leave with better rights for parents, got huge investment into our schools and NHS, and all of that whilst ensuring that pay slips of working people have not been affected. It's clear whose side we're on, the working people of this country. Now, I haven't heard the Leader of the Opposition clarify why she opposes all these things, but now is her chance.
Leader of the Opposition, Kemi Badenoch.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister can plant as many questions as is like with his backbenchers, but at the end of the day, I'm the one he has to face at the dispatch box. And I welcome him, Mr. Speaker. I welcome him back from... Mr. Speaker, I welcome the Prime Minister back from his trip to Azerbaijan, where he has unilaterally made commitments that will make life more experienced for everyone back home. Speaking of making life...
Somebody's suggesting reading. I think if you notice, the Prime Minister also reads. So please get your
And, Mr. Speaker, I can pre-prepare my questions, but he needs to answer from his mind. Yes. Speaking of making life...
Responsible for the answers.
Come on.
So he has made life more expensive with his unilateral commitments, but speaking of making life more expensive, will the Prime Minister confirm that he will keep the cap on council tax?
Mr. Speaker, she talks of the trip to COP. I'm very proud of the fact that we're restoring leadership on climate to this country, to the UK.
Whatever you might think of the commitments and things that he said out there, the fact that he went out there to Azerbaijan to the COP29, I know what people are going to say. I know, going to Azerbaijan, why was it hosted there in an oil-rich country? Don't ask me, wasn't my call. But at least he actually went out there to show, unlike many other world leaders who didn't do so. So you can give, I will give him credit for that at least.
Because that will be measured in lower bills on energy independence and the jobs of the future. And in relation, and she may have missed, but on Monday I was very pleased to announce a huge order into jobs in Hull for blades for offshore wind. If she's opposed to that sort of action, she should go to Hull and say so. On the question of council, she knows what the arrangements are.
Why haven't you said it then? Well, then just say what it is. See, you haven't ruled out what she just said there.
I think the House would have heard that the Prime Minister could neither confirm nor deny whether there was a cap in council tax was being raised. So I will ask him this question. How much extra does he expect local authorities will have to raise to cover the social care funding gap created by the Chancellor's budget and increases in employers' NI? He told the member for Edinburgh West just now that he was covering social care. How much extra does he expect local authorities to raise?
It's all very well, this knockabout, but not actually listening to what I said 3 minutes ago. It's a bit of a fundamental failure of the Leader of the Opposition. I just said £600 million. I repeat it, £600 million.
Kemi, you donut.
That he has repeated that number because he has probably not listened to the Labour-run LGA, who said that with no separate funding for the Chancellor's budget announcements, care providers will likely see increased costs, which will cost councils more, and all of the £600 in grant increase he is giving will not cover what is required for adult social care. It is clear that they had not thought through the impact of the budget, and this is the problem with having a copy and paste Chancellor. Did they not realise that care homes care homes, GP surgeries, children's nurseries, hospices, and even charities have to pay employers' NI?
Now, this is absolutely true. I think it's a video either today or yesterday that I put out with hospices going absolutely bonkers about the decision to this, and all those things absolutely are going to be affected by this increase in national insurance. And whether you like it or not, she's right to point this out. She's absolutely right to point this out.
We have put more money into local authorities than they did in 14 years. They left them in an absolutely catastrophic state. We produced a budget which does not increase tax on working people, nothing in the payslip. Sorry, I need to stop this here and make this very, very clear here. Employees will be affected by the increase in national insurance employers' rise. It will be affected. It will either affect them in their wages, whether they will get an increase in their wages from their employers, or it will increase the prices of the goods that they sell in those businesses. One of the two. It's going to come from the cost will come from consumers, or it will come from employees. The costs have to come from somewhere because businesses want to keep their profits, and they do not want to give up those profits to the government. Investing in our NHS, investing in our schools so every child can go as far as their talent will take them, investing in the houses of the future. If she's against those things, she should say so.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not against any of those things. But, of course not. None of us are against any of those things. But he has confirmed that he does not know what is going on. The Prime Minister probably does not realise that on Monday, the Ministry for Communities, Local Government and Housing revealed that councils will need to find an additional £2.4 billion in council tax next year. That's a lot more than 600 million. I know that he's been away, But did the Deputy Prime Minister, who runs that department, make him aware of their £2.4 billion black hole?
You said like black hole. I can't believe she said that. It's possible that the Chancellor may have something next year, potentially, maybe in the spring statement, perhaps maybe for it. But yeah, these councils we cannot allow the councils to suffer more cuts. They need funding. That is one thing. I hate that this is coming out of her mouth of all people, but she's right. These councils are struggling and they need the funding. And yes, I know the Conservatives are responsible for this. Yes, we are. We know that, but she's not wrong in this, I'm afraid, guys. She's not wrong. Stephen Banker, good to see you there, and anybody else lurking. Hope you're all doing well.
So let me get this straight, Mr. Speaker. She doesn't want any of the measures in the budget, but she wants all the benefits. So the Magic Money Tree is back after 2 weeks in office. 2 weeks in office. They've learned absolutely nothing. We've put forward a budget which takes the difficult decisions, fixing the £22 billion black hole that they left, investing in the future of our country. They say they want all of that, but they don't know how they're going to pay for it. Same old Tories.
Mr. Speaker, even he has to admit that they fiddled the fiscal rules. The OBR has actually said that they don't recognise where the additional growth is going to come from. The fact is, Mr. Speaker, the rise in employers' national insurance is going to be a disaster for small businesses around the country. Mr. Speaker, let me tell you about Kelly. For over 20 years, Kelly has run an after-school club business supporting 500 children and families in her borough. In 2024, her national insurance cost was about £10,000. In April, this will rise to £26,000. That is a 150% increase in costs from the budget alone. What is the Prime Minister's message to Kelly and the 500 families her small business supports if it goes under?
This is a great question. Kemi, regardless of what you might think, this is a great question, and this makes the Prime Minister and the government look really bad.
I would say this to Kelly. We inherited a very badly damaged economy.
That's not a very good answer.
We inherited a £22 billion black hole, and we were not prepared to continue with the fiction. We stabilised...
Ms Lopez, I'm sure I couldn't expect better from you as a PPS as well, Prime Minister.
I would say to Kelly, we are fixing the mess that we were left. We're investing in the future of our country. I would also say to her that the Leader of the Opposition, week 2, wants all the benefits from the budget, but has no way of saying how she's going to pay for it. Same old mistake over and over again.
I will just point out that they did not have to do this national insurance employers' rise. They could have raised money in other places. They could have raised money in many other places. It did not have to be. It did not have to be this way. It did not.
Mr. Speaker, he has nothing to offer except platitudes. And the fact is that they do not know what they're doing. Their ideological budget was designed to milk the private sector and hope nobody would notice. Now his cabinet ministers are all queuing up for public sector bailouts to his tax mess. If he is going to bail out the public sector, then can he tell us this? Does he think it is appropriate, as the Ministry for Housing has done, to approve a 4-day week for councils that is not flexible working, but is actually part-time work for full-time pay?
Okay, I'm going to call bullshit out on this. I think it's something that should seriously be pushing and more promoting for people to be able to have an extra day off. You can still work full-time and work full days. You can still work 30 to 39 plus hours. You know, you could work 8 hours a week. What's 8 times 4? Do your maths, Kemi. That's still over 30 hours. That is still considered full-time work. This, I don't, like, they, to claim that it's any way, shape or form that 4 days working is part-time is absolute 100% bullshit. Okay, it is bullshit. Okay, As someone who used to work in retail, I've worked 8, 10, 12 hours days, some of them 4 days a week. 4 days a week, and it's a lot. It's a lot. And people can still earn that same amount of pay in their contract, whether it is 39 hours, whether it's 30 hours, within 4 days, and still have an extra day off. They are still working and contributing. That is still a lot of hours. That is still a lot of contribution that you are giving. What the idea of a 4 day a week is to give people more free time, especially when when more than ever people are struggling with their mental health, struggling with their debts, struggling with stress, anxiety, all sorts of bloody things, which we'll talk about later on. Working 9 hours, 4 days a week equal 36 hours. Thank you, DJ, for putting that in context for me. 39 hours a week. 36 hours a week, sorry. I'm losing my brain here. But this really infuriates me because they don't understand what people are going through. Really doesn't. There are things that she's saying that I agree with, and there are things that I just vehemently disagree with. But we all know that she's just playing the political game. We know that.
Questions based on we're actually doing are usually better than fantasy questions made up. Mr. Speaker, what did they deliver in 14 years? Low growth, stagnant economy, a disastrous mini-budget, a £22 billion pack hole. And now she wants to give me advice on running the economy. I don't want to be rude, but no, thank you very much.
Patrick Hurley! Patrick, yes, you, right at the end, Patrick. So,
thank you, Mr. Speaker. Towns like mine in Southport need investment and support after 14 years of decline from the party opposition. So can the Prime Minister confirm that his budget will provide that much-needed investment for towns like mine, and further confirm that, unlike the previous government, my local authority and the public services that my town relies on will be finally properly supported?
Can I begin by paying tribute to my honourable friend and to his constituents in Southport. They've shown extraordinary courage and resilience as they try to rebuild from the devastating tragedy and loss earlier this year. We will ensure, Mr. Speaker, that the people of Southport are supported now and in the years to come. The budget is designed to fix the crucial services that his constituents rely on, including £1.3 billion of new funding for local government, an investment in safer streets, in our NHS for the future, and that's the direction in which we're taking the country.
Leader of the Liberal Democrats, Sir Ed Davey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When it comes to fixing the crisis in the NHS that he's inherited, the Prime Minister has rightly recognised the need to improve access to GPs. But like my honourable friend, the member for Edinburgh West, GPs in my constituency are writing to me to tell me how worried they are about the impact of the national insurance hike on patient care. So listen very carefully to what he said to my honourable friend, but I have to say I hope he can think again. Will he at least exempt GPs, community pharmacists and other health and care providers from this tax rise?
I hear the point he makes and I understand the concern. We have made a huge investment in our NHS, the biggest ever investment in our NHS for many, many years, and certainly almost all the people working in the NHS are very, very pleased to see that investment in them and in their service. On the question of GPs, we will ensure they've got the resources that we need, and the funding arrangements will be set out in the usual way later this year.
Sir Ed Davey.
Speaker, I have to say I think patients and GPs and others listening to answer will want more reassurance and much more quickly. But if I may turn to the war in Ukraine, Mr. Speaker, a senior advisor to President-elect Trump, Donald Trump Jr., has shared a post on Instagram that declares that President Zelensky will soon, within the next few weeks, lose his allowance. If the Trump administration does withdraw support from our brave Ukrainian allies, will the UK and Europe step up to fill the gap? Will he seize frozen Russian assets, not just the interest, but the assets underlying that, so we can fund a huge boost to the Ukrainian forces in their fight against Putin's war machine.
Mr. Speaker, as he knows, we've been resolute and strong in our support for Ukraine in the face of Russian aggression, and I have been speaking, as he will know, in recent weeks with other leaders about how we put Ukraine in the best and strongest possible position at this time, and I'll continue those discussions. Thank you.
David Bent.
It's a very good question by me, David, but very, very specific and, as you expected, very vague there. But I thought it was a very strong message there. You knew he wasn't going to close in on on what people in the Trump administration will be saying and doing. But I'm sure they will be, that, like he said, like the Prime Minister said, there will be discussions with other European leaders that we don't know about. And I'm sure they are all preparing for whatever outcome the Trump administration is going to impose on Ukraine.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Child poverty is a national scandal. In
Yes.
St Helens North, it increased by over 50% under the previous government. Does the Prime Minister agree with me that we need to address this, ideally cross-party? And if so, does he share my concern that the Conservatives have opposed actions we're taking with the budget, employment rights, housing and more, not to mention their leaders' comments on maternity pay, which suggests they just don't get what working families and their children need?
How about the removal of the 2-child benefit cap? How about you put that in your bloody question?
My honourable friend is absolutely right. Under the party opposite, we saw child poverty increase by 700,000. This was a budget that not only invests in our NHS and our schools, but also ensures that working people won't face a penny extra in their pay slips or at the petrol pump. But because it came to tough decisions on tax, we haven't touched national insurance, income tax or VAT, just as we promised on working people. We also gave 3 million of the lowest paid a pay rise, something which the party opposite seems to be opposing. Thank you.
Bit stupid to mention the national insurance there when they literally just increased the employers' national insurance.
Ben Robinson.
Prime Minister, Lebanon is in crisis and my constituent Catherine Flanagan is in despair. Her 3-year-old son David Nally has been out of her care for the last 2 years. The Belfast High Court has indicated that he should be returned to his mother, and they have issued a bench warrant for the arrest of his father. But when she fled domestic violence in Beirut, she got no help or assistance from the UK Embassy. And when she has sought assistance from the Foreign and Commonwealth Office to be returned with her son, to see her son again, and this British citizen come back to the UK, she has not received the assistance that she or I in our community expect she should. Can I ask the Prime Minister to engage in this issue and at the very least ask the Foreign Secretary to assist my constituent in her earnest desire to see her 3-year-old son again?
Can I thank the Right Honourable Member for raising this case and for all that he's doing on behalf of Catherine and David. I hope they get some comfort from knowing they've got an MP working so hard on their behalf. It is, I know, a complex and difficult situation, but of course I will make sure that the relevant meetings are set up with the relevant ministers to ensure that he gets the answers that he needs on behalf of his constituents.
Jacob Collett.
Oh, I hope so, because that was pretty brutal to listen to. The fact that not only did the British Embassy not respond to her needs, but the goddamn Foreign Office completely ignored it as well. That's pretty dreadful.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My constituency of Burton and Uttoxeter is the home of UK brewing and has the best pubs in the country. The Prime Minister is welcome to join me for a pint in sampling the very best beer in the world. As this government looks to reform business rates and consult on the changes, will the Prime Minister commit to ensuring that pubs and hospitality have a seat at the table?
Mr. Speaker, last time I went to my honourable friend's constituency, I got to see the fantastic South Derbyshire College. I look forward now to testing his proposition that he has the best pubs in his constituency on some future occasion. But pubs and breweries are such an important part of our culture and of our communities, and that's why the budget delivered an £85 million per year tax cuts for pubs, reducing the duty on a pint. We also delivered a 40% relief on business rates for next year and permanently lowering them for the year after. We're protecting small businesses by more than doubling the employer allowance to £10,500.
Thanks to Neil Shastrey-Hurst.
In the past week, there have been reports of more schools who are slated for closure as a direct consequence of the Prime Minister's ideologically driven policy to introduce VAT on school fees and increase national insurance contributions. This will be a pattern seen up and down the country and will lead to staff being unemployed and pupils and parents being cast adrift. Will the Prime Minister do the decent thing and abandon this policy and apologise to those affected?
Apologise? Wow. You've got some nerve. Your party have got a lot of fecking sorrying to say, and you're the ones asking this government to apologise. I don't agree with the national insurance rise. I agree with the VAT because the education is so imbalanced between state and private. But, excuse me, to call on the government to apologise is damn right fucking insulting, considering the mess that you fuckers left us in.
I do understand the concerns of those that save to send their children to private school because they believe in aspiration and opportunity. What I would say is that every single parent shares that aspiration and opportunity, whichever school they send them to. Under the last government, we didn't have enough teachers in basic subjects in our state secondary schools. They were prepared to tolerate that. I'm not.
Mr. Speaker, 3 million people across the country, including an estimated 70,000 in Wales, will benefit from Labour's budget measures on the minimum wage and the national living wage. Contrast that with the Leader of the Opposition, who said minimum wage was hurting businesses, or the Shadow Chancellor, who called minimum wage a burden. Does the Prime Minister agree with me that those comments underline that the Tories have no interest in protecting working people or boosting the income of the lowest paid?
Mr. Speaker, it was the last Labour government that introduced the national minimum wage. In the teeth of opposition from the party opposite, I'm proud that this government has now increased it by over 16%. That means an increase of over £2,500 a year for a full-time worker who are aged 18 to 20. Whether it's our employment rights bills or decisions at the budget, this is a government that is proudly on the side of Britain's working people.
Good job.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now that Sue Gray has remarkably turned down the opportunity to be the Prime Minister's special envoy to the nations, will the Prime Minister now finally admit that it was an invented job on taxpayers' money for one of his cronies? And if it wasn't, is he going to hire a new one?
What a pathetic question. This is an absolutely pathetic question. Coming from, and you mentioned the word cronies. There are more cronies in your party than there are in Labour, that is for sure. Labour has their cronies, absolutely. You guys can't talk shit about cronies.
It wasn't.
That was quick.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I represent loads of hard-working mums and dads in Tipton, Wednesbury and Coseley. Last week, the Leader of the Opposition's campaign chair, Rachel McLean, said it was not the right decision for the Tories to expand childcare provision. Will the Prime Minister confirm that this Labour government believes in supporting working families and will work to get them the childcare they need?
Let me be absolutely clear. This government is committed to making childcare more affordable and accessible. The party opposite voted against making life easier for working families. They've learned absolutely nothing. We're committed to £1.8 billion to expand access across childcare, creating 3,000 new school-based nurseries and family hubs. And I'm proud that we're taking the country in the right direction.
Mr. Speaker, Article 2 of the United Nations Genocide Convention makes it explicitly clear that genocide is not about numbers, it's about intent. And the intent of the Israeli government and the IDF has been explicitly clear in words and in actions over the past 400 days. More than 45,000 innocent men, women and children killed. On the 28th of October, the Foreign Secretary denied that a genocide was even taking place and suggested that the Israeli army had not yet killed enough Palestinians to constitute a genocide. And last week, the PMQs, the Prime Minister started that he has never referred to the atrocities happening in Gaza as a genocide. Will the Prime Minister share his definition of genocide with this House? And will he state what further action he is prepared to take to save lives of desperate and starving men, women and children, given that we now hold the presidency of the United Nations Security Council?
He's going to come out and defend Israel's right to defend itself. It's a great question, but we know he's not going to be clear on this, if I'm honest.
It would be wise to start a question like that by reference to what happened in October of last year.
That does not justify 43,000 Palestinians, many of whom women and children are dead.
I'm well aware of the definition of genocide, and that is why I've never described this and referred to it as genocide.
But you know it is. You know for a fact it is. You're a fucking lawyer and you know it.
Katie White.
Mr. Speaker, my constituent's daughter, Bethany Ray Fields, was brutally murdered by her ex-boyfriend in 2019, despite raising multiple alarms of this abuse of the police. Bethany's mother, Pauline, travelled down to Parliament this week to bring her case to the Minister. Does the Prime Minister agree with Pauline that more needs to be done to shift the culture towards believing and reacting fast to victims when they sound the alarm of concern as one way to reduce violence against women and girls?
What happened to Bethany is appalling. My thoughts, as I'm sure the whole House, is with her families. We do need a culture shift here, and we have committed to halving violence against women and girls in a decade. No government has ever made that commitment before. I hope that can be something which is shared across the House, because this is so important, and it starts with that central question of belief and confidence. For every woman or young woman who comes forward, there are probably about 9 who never have the confidence to come forward, and that starts with belief and the culture that we put in place, and we're committed to that. And I invite the whole House to join us on that mission to halve violence against women and girls.
Absolutely.
Nigel Farage. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm sure the Prime Minister and the whole House would wish to congratulate Donald Trump on his landslide victory last week.
No, we would not. Get on with your question.
Hold on. I will hear the question. Nigel.
Thank you. But within a couple of days, we'd learned of a third assassination attempt. Charges have been laid, and behind it are Iran's Revolutionary Guards. Has the time not come, Prime Minister, to prescribe what is so obviously a terrorist organisation, and in doing so, not just do the right thing, but maybe mend some fences between this government and the incoming presidency of Donald Trump's, given that the whole of his cabinet have been so rude about him over the last few years?
Oh, I hate this man. Why was he given a question? Fuck's sake.
Well, I'm glad to see the honourable member making a rare appearance back here in Britain. I spent so much time in America recently, I was half expecting to see him on the immigration statistics when we see him. But he may have missed. I did congratulate the incoming president last week, and we will work with him. The point he makes about Iran is a very serious point, and we will work across the House and with our allies on it. Obviously, on question of prescription, we keep them under review. Thank you.
Abdul Khan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I welcome the Prime Minister's recognition of Islamophobia Awareness Month and his commitment to supporting Muslim communities. The APPG on British Muslims' definition of Islamophobia is one of the most widely accepted definitions on this issue, and I have been discussing the adoption of it with the Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Faith, and the Leader of the House. Given recent riots and doubling of Islamophobic hate crimes over the last decade, can the Prime Minister outline the steps this government will take to tackle this issue and commit to ensuring a clear and effective definition of Islamophobia?
Well, I thank you for raising this important issue. Whatever the hatred, there has been a rise in the last 12 months or so, and I think the whole House will join in saying we must meet any rise in hatred in whatever form it is, including Islamophobia. We are working with others to take this forward, and I'm happy to meet with him further on that.
Brendan O'Hara.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was in South Lochaber at the weekend speaking to pensioners who still cannot understand why the Prime Minister chose to take away their winter fuel payment.
Shame.
And one of them remembered from just 2 years ago the then Leader of the Opposition saying, "Looking ahead to winter is frightening. I've met pensioners who have no idea how they'll heat their home." And she asked me to ask you, Prime Minister, whatever happened to that guy?
Yeah.
Mr. Speaker, as he knows from previous answers, we've taken tough decisions in this budget to deal with the situation that we faced. Because of that, we've stabilised the economy, which means we can commit to the triple lock. Because of the triple lock, pensioners will be better off. But I'll take no lectures from his party about running the economy. Their record in Scotland is terrible.
But people's lives in Scotland are a lot better than they are in England, Prime Minister. I think that's very, very clear to say. The way Diane Abbott was treated was appalling to Stephen Banker. Yeah, it was. Private international relations, Farage Limited. Yeah, he's trying to get a foot in the door, wasn't he, to be fair on that. Did Farage drivel there? Yeah, I'm glad that it's nice to see Farage getting a proper swipe at, to be fair, there as well. If for NI for employees is saying £30 a week, so £30 we put in my employer, so she has 100 employees, hopes that helps. Kelly pays £10,000 for national insurance. How many employees? Okay. The clowns are entertaining today, says Stephen Banker. Yes, they are. Starver playing the violin. Yeah, he's not really responding to it.
Juliet Kendall.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I welcome the establishment of a flood resilience task force because in my constituency of Broxtowe there has been unprecedented flooding that has affected many of my constituents. There's rising concern and significant financial insecurity for many who face distress, trauma and fear in their own homes. May I ask the Prime Minister what other measures he's taking to improve flood resilience and support that will be available to my residents and my constituents in Broxtowe?
Yeah. I do know the dreadful impact that flooding has had on her constituency, including with Storm Henk earlier this year. The last government left flood defences in the worst condition on record. We are investing £2.4 billion in flood resilience over the next 2 years, and we've launched a flood resilience task force to coordinate national and local flood preparation to better protect communities and our economy. Rather than heckling, they might take a reflection on the record that they left.
Yeah, heckling while people's homes are getting flooded is not exactly a good idea, so the Conservatives should just shut the fuck up on that one.
Mr. Speaker, the residents of my constituency in South Basildon and East Thurrock are facing a triple whammy of increased council tax of 50%, reduced public services and a borrowing on £1 billion worth of emergency funding.
I'm sorry, does this guy look like some kind of smug asshole? Is it because he's from Reform? Maybe it's just me. Ted Boy, good to see you there. Are the only countries supporting the slaughter have themselves been guilty of genocide, and they have no bloody right to deem anyone a terrorist. Yom Hamdimdri from Twitch chat. What's up? What's up to you?
Which is 1% above base. That 1% is £10 million approximately per year that's going to the Treasury that could be spent on frontline services in Thurrock. Will the Prime Minister commit to reducing that rate so the money can go where it belongs?
Well, I thank him for his question. The last government made life even more difficult for councils needing exceptional financial support by charging a premium on borrowing. That was the wrong decision, which had a huge impact on vital services, and we will be taking a different approach. We're delivering in real terms increase on core public, on government spending power, and that will benefit his constituents.
Sir John Joseph.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Leader of the Opposition took time at her party's conference to say that a little bit of adversity in life is good for people's mental health. That approach clearly did not work for the 2 million people who are stuck on mental health waiting lists because of the last Tory government. Can the Prime Minister commit to tackling mental health waits in the NHS?
Yes, he should do.
I think we've obviously recognised the devastating impact that mental health problems have on people's livelihoods, and Lord Dars's report showed that waiting lists are far too long, and there's a shocking decline in mental health in children under the last government. Giving mental health the attention it needs, we're doing by recruiting 8,500 mental health workers, much needed, and of course reforming the Mental Health Act, which in my view is long overdue.
Alex Blower.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Chalk stream rivers are rare with a unique ecology. Most of them are in the UK, and 2 are in my constituency of North East Hampshire. Last year, chalk stream rivers were hit with 14,000 hours of sewage discharges, and the previous government did nothing, despite calls from my honourable friend, the MP for Chesham and Amersham. Will the Prime Minister introduce a special protection for our chalk stream rivers?
Well, I thank her for raising this, and we are committed to protection and restoration of unique chalk streams. She's right, the destruction of our waterways should never have been allowed, and we've announced immediate action to end this disgraceful behaviour. New powers with tougher penalties, including fines, banning bonuses and bringing criminal charges against those who persistently break the law. We've also launched a water commission. Thank you.
Well, it won't do much, if I'm honest, because they're still in the hands of private companies.
Why?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I welcome the Prime Minister's leadership on an international scale to smash the criminal gangs that smuggle people across the border. This Labour government having returned over 9,000 people with no right to be in the UK, which is 20% more than the party opposite. Will the Prime Minister confirm that he will continue this trade and smash the gangs that profit from people's misery?
Yes, the last government lost control of our borders. And in the first 6 months of this year, small bite arrivals were up 18% on the same period last year. They spent £700 million on returning, 4 volunteers to Rwanda. Since coming into office, we've returned 9,400 people with no right to be here. They talked about getting the flights off. We've got the flights off, including the single biggest deportation flight. And so that's why we're investing another £75 million in smashing the gangs. We're absolutely determined to have a serious response to a serious question, not a gimmick that achieved absolutely nothing.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ensuring every child has access to a great education, I'm sure, is a priority for all across this House, and I welcome the announcements for extra funding for children with SEND at the budget. The Chancellor, in her speech, announced a £2.3 billion increase in core spending and £1 billion for SEN. However, the budget document states that they are, in fact, both from the same pot, announced twice. Which is correct?
The Chancellor made this absolutely clear in the budget. putting that huge investment into special educational needs. It's an issue that is of concern across this House, because I think all members are recognising the appalling record of the last government. It's been raised from his own benches, the appalling state of SEN. So I'm very proud of the money that this government is putting in where the last government failed.
Mr. Trafford! Mr. Speaker, there's not a week that goes by where my office isn't contacted by young people and their families who are being let down by the shocking state of SEND provision locally. Across my constituency, I'm trying to work across party lines to push both Central Bedfordshire and Hertfordshire Council to do more. And I welcome the fantastic extra news in the budget about additional funding and subsequent announcements about increased support for mainstream settings. But we know we're going to do more, need to do more. So can the Prime Minister assure my constituents that we won't shy away from the whole system reform needed to finally ensure every young person has the support they need to thrive in school?
No, we won't shy away from that challenge, because it's far too important for the children and the families and the communities involved, and therefore we will not only put the necessary money in, but we will look at the reform that is needed alongside the investment, and we will finally fix the problem, another of the problems that we've inherited from the lot opposite.
Final question, Sir Alex Shelbrooke.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On the 29th of November, this House will be asked to consider at second reading one of the most consequential pieces of legislation to this country's make-up. But I am generally approaching this with an open mind, but have many concerns. And what concerns me, Prime Minister, is the short space of time on that day. So could I ask you, Prime Minister, that before we get to the 29th of November, that the government will make a commitment that we can have 2 days, 16 hours of protected time on the floor of the House in government time, that we can examine and debate in this House the report stage, so that many of the arguments we are concerned about may be able to be brought out then, because otherwise, Prime Minister, people like myself may decline a second reading over fear that we may not get to be able to debate these issues in full.
Well, I'm grateful to him for raising this issue. It is obviously an important issue, an important vote, and I know that there are strongly held views on both sides of the debate across this House, and that's why it will be a free vote. I think every member needs to decide for themselves how they will vote on it. It's a free vote. I do think there's sufficient time allocated to it, but it is an important issue.
Right, that completes Prime Minister's questions.
I'm assuming that he's talking about assisting dying there, but correct me if I'm wrong in the chat. But I'm assuming that is the debate. But his question was perfectly illegitimate there. But regardless of the free vote, so what did I think of Prime Minister's questions? I thought actually, believe it or not, I thought Kemi was while at times she was absolutely completely dumb, there were some reasonable questions that she put to the Prime Minister that the Prime Minister just completely ignored, and it's definitely become a formality in for the Prime Minister. That is for sure. It's very it is very frustrating to say the least. I will on that part. I thought Ed Davies' questions were very good as well. In particular, the second question, and it's a shame again the Prime Minister we did not answer that again, which again was really frustrating. I just felt like a lot of push aside, a lot of Labour MPs sucking up to the Prime Minister, and we are going to continuously get in the Tories getting trashed in Prime Minister's questions all the time. That's all well and good, but people want answers to their solutions and to their problems, and it seems like a lot of it is kind of just passing the buck sort of thing, and I didn't like that at all. I'm there's going to get to a point where they can't keep blaming the Conservatives. It is still a while; they can still get away with it, but they can't keep blaming the Tories forever. Eventually, they're going to have to face the music and face up to what they're doing. That argument is going to end at some point, and it's just a matter of a matter of time, really. It is just going to be a matter of time there on that. So, guys, we've reached the end of Prime Minister's questions. Obviously, let me know what you guys thought of PMQs down below. DJ Mardy said it was awful. Not really taking much away from this. There was not much to take away from this either, to be fair. A lot of it was, there were relatively good questions from people, and there were none. Why on earth it was Nigel Farage allowed to talk? God help me. God help us all. But, yeah, it's very frustrating. I don't... Was the last PMQs, did they have a Green MP speaking? I can't recall. But, yeah, Nigel, I did like that bit of a chime at Nigel Farage there at PMQs. I thought that was pretty nice. But, yeah, it wasn't the one to remember. But let me know what you guys thought down in the comments below, what you guys thought of Prime Minister's questions and some of your thoughts on that. It was very frustrating at times for me, especially when you keep hearing the same nonsense from people over and over again. That is for sure. I will be back tonight at 8 o'clock for a snowflake on mental health. I will try to not to refer too much to politics if I can help it. I can't promise that, but I will try to avoid talking about it. But if you want to join me for that, you are more than welcome to join me there tonight at 8 o'clock. And I do plan on doing a Discord after chat after it as well. I will put that in, remind people throughout the day on there as well. So thank you guys for coming along. Thank you guys for all your comments and giving your time to come and watch along with me. If there's Prime Minister's questions again next week, I will be back next week for another Prime Minister's questions. Tomorrow will be in Snowflake Roundtable with myself, All Shorts, Daily Blase, and One Angry Pagan. And then on Friday we will have Friday Lights with myself, and we'll just have a nice chill out, have a bit of fun and whatnot, because we kind of need that with everything that's going on in the world. So just before I go, just have one last thing to say. If you haven't already, please hit the like button. Be greatly appreciated. Share this across social media so others are notified of this live stream. If you haven't subscribed already, please consider subscribing. Help me get to that 2,000 mark before the end of the year. Doesn't look like we're going to get there, but we'll see as we get closer to Christmas if we can bump up that a little bit. But if you can help me get there, if you're not subscribed and you find the content informative and helpful to you, please consider subscribing. It really does make a massive difference. And if you want to go one step further and financially support me and the work that I do here, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for just 99p. Or you can join me on Rumble or Patreon for exclusive content on those platforms. So thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.